May 12th, somewhere along Route 23, deep in the Midwest. The miles blur together when you've been driving as long as I have. Some roads are straight shots through empty landscapes, while others wind like a snake through forgotten towns and dead-end places. Places people leave and never come back to. I've been on the road for hours, the glow of my headlights the only thing cutting through the pitch-black stretch of highway. My CB radio is silent, my thermos is empty, and my stomach is gnawing at itself. I need a stop, any stop. That's when I see it. A gas station, standing alone at the edge of the road, its flickering sign barely holding on to life. The only light for miles. It doesn't even look like it belongs here, like it was dropped from another time and left to rot. But at this hour, I'm not picky. I pull in, my tires crunching against the gravel lot. The place is deserted. No cars, no attendants, just an old vending machine humming in the corner and a single pump standing like a rusted grave marker. But inside, through the dust-covered windows, I see movement. A man, standing at the counter, back turned to me. Still. Too still. I step inside, the bell above the door barely making a sound. The air is thick, heavy, like walking into a room filled with smoke. The man doesn't turn, doesn't acknowledge me, just stares at something behind the counter. And then, in a voice that sounds like it's been dragged across gravel, he speaks. "You shouldn't have stopped here." A slow chill works its way down my spine. I glance at the door, considering whether I should just turn around and leave. But the man finally moves, just enough to tilt his head, like he's listening for something. Then, in a hushed voice, he says, "You ever hear about the kids from town?" I frown. "What kids?" "Couple of teenagers. Lived up the road. Quiet town, quiet lives. But you know how it is. Kids get bored. They go looking for things they shouldn't." His fingers tap anxiously on the counter. They found something. A ritual. Some game on Reddit. One of those creepy internet things. Thought it was harmless. He lets out a shaky breath. But I think it worked. Did you ever have an imaginary friend? Chances are good that you did, even if you don't remember it. The statistics say about 65% of all kids do, and that it usually lasts for a couple of months. My mom claims I had mine for almost 2 years. I think his name was Dale. Or Dane. He was really good at marbles, the way I usually wished I was, and he knew all the best hiding places when my brother and I played hide and seek. He was my best friend in first grade, but until Kat showed us the ritual, I hadn't thought about him in years. Of course, it was Kat who found the ritual. She's always lurking on r/paranormal and r/3kings. Joel and I aren't quite as into creepy shit, but Kat's been our friend since elementary school. She's a good friend, weird interests and all. Also, a total badass at COD. She'd been after us for months to do one of her rituals, but most of the things she found just seemed silly or dangerous. What is the point of locking yourself in a dark room with a mirror? If you stare into it long enough, of course you're going to see something. And if you get a bunch of people together and go stumbling around in the dark, someone's going to get hurt. We tried to tell her we didn't want to do the rituals, but she persisted. Kat's like that. She doesn't really take no for an answer. On Friday, she showed up at Joel's house with a sheaf of papers clutched in her hand. We were sitting around, playing some Madden, when she started banging on the door like she was there to serve a warrant. She was practically vibrating when we opened the door. I took a step back, but she shoved the papers into my hands before I realized what she was doing. "Look, Remy, I found a ritual you guys can actually do. Nothing dangerous, nothing stupid. This is the one." Joel started to protest, but Kat was already pushing past him into the house. She sprawled on the couch, so far back that her sandals dangled a couple of inches off the floor. Her foster parents don't let her shave her legs, but I caught Joel checking her out anyway. He's always kind of had a thing for her, but Kat's totally oblivious to that kind of stuff. Just read it. Joel squinted at the printout. "Ritual for summoning your imaginary friend," he read, shaking his head. "Regain your creativity, your innocence, and your power. Give me that." He snatched the papers, but I had my eyes on Kat. She was jittering on the couch like an over-caffeinated kid on Christmas Eve. Her brown eyes were shining with excitement, and she kept messing with her hair, twisting one strand around her finger and flipping it from one side of her part to the other. "See? It's perfect. What is this ritual supposed to do exactly?" I put my hand out for the papers, but Joel was still reading. He yanked the ritual away from me and slumped down on the couch next to Kat, flipping to the next page. "It says we have to finish the ritual 3 minutes to sunset, and if we do it correctly, our imaginary friends will appear. There's a whole list of stuff we need." His voice trailed off as he ran his finger down the list. "Yeah?" Kat prompted him. "Bounce, bounce. Water, a watch, childhood photographs. I think I have most of this stuff." He frowned at something on the page. "What's the salt for?" I stared at him. "You're not actually considering this one?" "Why not?" Joel shrugged, and Kat broke into a big, sunny smile. I did a double take. Kat doesn't smile much. Her front teeth are crooked, and no matter what we tell her, she's always been self-conscious about it. "It doesn't look dangerous. We just lay out this stuff and invite our childhood friends to return." I threw myself back into Joel's old recliner, wincing as the mechanism inside squealed warningly. "For what purpose? I mean, I can get behind wanting to reconnect with part of your childhood, but what good does it do to summon your imaginary friend?" Joel closed the packet and handed the papers over to me. He looked at Kat for a long time before he answered, and when he finally did, it seemed like he was talking more to her than to me. "I was a really happy kid," he said. "I wouldn't mind getting that back. Levi and I used to have all kinds of adventures in my dad's house." "Yes." Kat clapped her hands and threw her legs over Joel's. "Come on, Remy. There has to be something about your childhood that you wouldn't mind getting back. The ritual says we can ask our childhood friends questions, and that sometimes they'll give us a gift if we ask nicely." If we ask nicely. Like something was out there, deciding whether or not we were worthy. I shivered. Then I looked at the two of them and thought about it. Really thought about it. The way I suspected neither of them had actually done. Kat was right. I did have some questions. And what was the worst that could happen? Neither Joel nor I was any stranger to making fools of ourselves, and it would be pretty badass to see Dane again, even if it was only imaginary. I looked up. Kat beamed at me. She was thrilled that Joel was in. I sighed. "Fine. What do we need to do?" Setting up for the ritual was simple. We had to split up to get the childhood photographs, but everyone found one. Joel found this great picture of him, with his hair in micro braids. When we finished laughing about it, he put it into the circle with Kat's third-grade dance recital snapshot and the picture of me in my youth soccer uniform. I hoped we weren't going to have to burn the pictures. I looked like an idiot in that uniform, but my mom would be big mad if the picture went up in flames. "Focus, you guys." Kat's eyes were so wide and bright, I almost suspected she was on something. She'd told us to focus about a dozen times now, but Joel and I weren't taking it seriously. We should have. "Yeah, Remy." Joel poked me with the bundle of sage. "Stop fooling around. This is important to Kat." I brandished the salt shaker. "I'm over here doing my job. You were the one horsing around." Stop it. Kat had both hands on her hips, her eyes flashing. I really need this to go right, you guys. I yawned, righting the salt shaker and sidestepping Joel as he tried to poke me again. Why is this so important to you, Kitty Cat? She rolled her eyes at the nickname, or maybe at my question. This is the first time you idiots have actually agreed to help me with one of these. And besides, I really want to see Friend again. He was the only one I had after my parents died. We both fell quiet at that. Kat doesn't talk about her childhood much. She moved to town the year we all turned 9, and we've been best friends ever since. So much so, in fact, that we tend to forget she wasn't always with us. I could tell Joel wanted to make a snarky comment about Friend's name, but he kept his mouth shut. Who knew what old memories it might drag up? Kat lit the sage and offered it to me. Remy, you go first. Why me? I didn't reach for the sage. I wasn't ready to participate in this ridiculousness until one of the others went first. But Kat wasn't going to give me a choice. Kat smiled, inscrutable, and pointed to something in the printout. You're the oldest by 6 days, right? It has to be you. Ugh, fine. I took a breath and spoke the words, feeling ridiculous. Nothing happened. No flicker in the air, no shapes in the dim candlelight. Just silence. I almost felt relieved. If something had happened, I would have had to face it. This way, I could still pretend the ritual was bullshit. Then, with a wet hissing noise, the candle went out. Wind. Joel spoke quickly, striking a match, but there was no wind. The windows were closed, and for a second, I had the awful feeling something had just made a decision about me. The flames stood straight and bright once more, as Kat handed the smoking bundle of sage to Joel. The candlelight stretched as he spoke the ritual words. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, but then I saw it. Thin, dark, barely there. A little boy, about 7 years old, with a shock of white hair and big pupilless blue eyes, not quite standing, not quite moving, just there, staring at Joel with something like recognition. Levi? Joel's voice cracked, but he didn't ask a question. He didn't wait. I dismiss you. The shadow flickered, and then it was gone. Joel let out a breath that was almost a sob. Why did you do that? Kat surged to her feet, knocking over the salt shaker. You didn't even ask him anything. He looked at you, Joel. She wasn't just mad. She was hurt, like he'd thrown away something she'd been working on for years. Joel was still breathing hard when Kat snatched the sage from him, her fingers gripping it so tightly, her knuckles went white. The moment she sat back down, the candle flames trembled, not flickering, not bending in the air, just shivering like something unseen had pressed too close. A thick weight settled over the room, heavy and suffocating, like we were being buried in something invisible, like the air had been replaced with something denser, something that wanted to be inside our lungs. Joel and I exchanged a look, and I knew he was feeling it too. Kat didn't hesitate. She lifted her chin, her voice steady, the words spilling from her like she'd practiced them 100 times. Friend, beloved of Kat, I invite you back. The candlelight lurched sideways, the shadows stretched, pooling unnaturally beneath Kat's filthy sandals. I swallowed hard. The room tilted, not physically, but suddenly the floor didn't feel stable. The walls were too far away, stretching back into a darkness that hadn't been there before. Joel's hand shot out, gripping my arm. Friend, Kat repeated, and she smiled, a real soft, relieved smile. Come back to me, beloved. Something slid into the circle, not appeared, slid. I don't know how to describe it. At first, it was just wrong air, a smear of space that shouldn't exist. And then, it was there. Not fully formed, but real enough that I could feel my stomach trying to fold in on itself, just from looking at it. It was too tall. Where Levi had been a shadow, flickering and vague, this thing was solid, a thick, sinewy shape, hunched and waiting. I didn't want to look at its face, but my eyes kept pulling towards it, like my own mind wanted to confirm the thing it refused to process. It was smiling. Too many teeth, in too many places. I sucked in a sharp breath. Joel made a noise low in his throat, but Kat just beamed. "See, Remy?" Her voice was barely a whisper, reverent. "It works." He came back. As she spoke, the thing moved toward her. A twitch, a jerk, like something shifting under its skin, like it was learning how to wear its own shape again. Its limbs cracked as it reached for her. Joel grabbed my wrist again. "Nope, nope, 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 nope." "Kat," I whispered, barely able to get the words out. "We should stop." But she didn't look scared, and she didn't say the words to dismiss the monster. She looked happy. Joel yanked hard on my arm, and for the first time, Kat's expression sharpened. "Go," she snapped. The candles flared. The shadow at her feet reached. "I'll finish the ritual alone." The words sent a spike of cold fear through my guts. The room didn't feel right anymore. It felt claimed. Joel and I bolted. I walked home alone. Joel didn't say anything when we reached the intersection near his house. He just turned and left, hands jammed deep in his hoodie pockets. I didn't blame him. The night felt too quiet. The streetlights buzzed overhead, and somewhere far off, a dog barked once before cutting off, like it had thought better of making noise. I wasn't sure I was breathing right. My chest felt tight. My stomach knotted. I didn't even want to look at the shadows pooling in the alleyways I passed. Didn't want to think about how they stretched wrong back at Kat's house. How they moved. Kat was still there. With it. Friend. I almost went back a dozen times, but I couldn't. Instead, I charged upstairs to my room, threw myself on my bed, and threw my arm over my eyes. I couldn't process what had happened to us. How did everything get so screwed up? My phone buzzed next to me on the bed, and I glanced at the screen. Joel, 11:42 p.m. "Dude, don't answer Kat. If she texts you, don't answer. Something's wrong. She came over acting weird. I don't think it's her." The phone buzzed in my hand as I read the last message. Another text, this time from Kat. "Kat, 11:43 p.m. Joel's being so weird, lol. Wouldn't even let me in. I'm coming to you instead. Be there soon." I stared at my phone, pulse hammering against my ribs. My fingers felt stiff, heavy. I wanted to believe Joel was overreacting, that Kat was just messing with us, that we were all just... Something shifted, a creak of wood, under the bed. "Remy, don't trust them." A voice, small, familiar, too close, like someone was curled beneath my bed, their mouth an inch from my ear. I stopped breathing. The air in my lungs turned solid. Then, from the darkness below, something rolled out and bumped against my foot. A marble.